Well, it's all over. The shining city on a hill, which is Anchorage, is finally coming to an end, and the entire real estate market is about to collapse right in front of our eyes. Or maybe not. Today, we're going to be talking about what's going on in the real estate market for Anchorage to see if this is or is not the truth, and we'll be looking at the single family, the condo, and the multifamily market. Before we get started though, do make sure you give this video a like or subscribe. I'm not going to ask you to do both because honestly, I'm not worthy of both. So just do one or the other, and let's just get this video started. Now, the very first thing we want to look at when we're talking about Anchorage is what's going on in the single family market. Now, right now we're seeing that there's about 260 properties available on the market, which that's a slight increase from what we had the year before, where it was about 250. So we're seeing a bit of an increase there. Before we get too excited, let's also keep in mind that this time of year, normally prior to COVID, we would see anywhere from about 700 to about 850 properties available on the market. So seeing about 260, you can see why I'm not exactly shouting from the rooftops or throwing a parade right this second. That is a good step in the right direction though. The next thing we see here is the number of properties that actually sold went from 205 this time last year to 225 this year. So that means that even though the inventory is about a third of what it normally was prior to COVID, we're still seeing about comparable amounts of properties selling, because normally prior to COVID, we'd see anywhere from about 260 to about 270 properties selling. So being at about 225, it's not the same thing, but it's in the same general ballpark. So that's great news. For the market, it does mean that there's still a lot of demand for the market at the moment. All right, now looking at the next graph here, we see the average sold price, the thing that people actually do tune in to actually see, has actually gone up. It's gone from about $510,000 year to date last year to $520,000 this year, which means we're seeing about a 2% increase for the average sold price for properties in Anchorage. Now, this kind of flies in the face of what a lot of people have been saying for a while, because I could not do anything for a bit there without people telling me the whole market was about to collapse and the economic system is about to collapse due to this metric and that metric and blah, blah, blah. And people get so worked up over what they see on the news because someone thinks they've cracked the code and they can show you exactly what's going to happen and when it's going to collapse. Let me clue you in on it. If everybody thinks there's going to be a collapse, there's not going to be a collapse. Collapses happen because no one saw it coming. If everyone sees it coming, it's something that we can adjust for, and it's probably not going to happen that specific way. Okay, off my soapbox. But historically, though, we do see in Anchorage about anywhere from about a 1 to about 3-4% increase for the average sold price year over year. So being about 2%, that just kind of shows me we're more or less back in what we're seeing for average for the market, and I'm all for it. I know some buyers out there really would like to see the market just collapse, and you probably don't want that long term, because do you really want to take on an asset that you've seen can be volatile and just loses all of its value overnight? Like, I think you're living in a fantasy land created and directed by Pixar if you think that you're going to buy real estate when it's really volatile and it's going to be really cheap, and then after that it's just always going to be super stable and secure. Like, just I kind of doubt we're going to be seeing any of that in the near future, any collapsing to that extent anyway in the near future. And believe me, I think that's going to be a good thing for you long term. Okay, again, stepping off my soapbox, on to the next thing. Do you know what I love doing only slightly more than judging my neighbor because he still has a dish satellite? Giving you the condo real estate market for Anchorage. So looking at it this year, we see that there was about 80 condos available in the market this time last year, and now it's 105. So we're seeing a bit of an uptick in the number of condos that are available. But again, before we get too excited though, do recall that normally around this time of year, we see anywhere from about 400 to about 440 condos available on the market. So we are seeing an increase, but it's an increase from a really low watermark than what we saw just a couple of years ago. Because looking at 2023, the inventory was actually 54, and then it went up to 80, and now we're at about 105. So still a long way off from where we were prior to COVID. But again, it's a step in the right direction, and I'm going to encourage that as much as I can. The next thing we see is the number of condos that have actually sold has also increased slightly. So this time last year it was 81 condos actually sold, and this year it's 84. So not much of an increase either way. Normally we'd see anywhere from about 90 to 100 condos selling, and the fact that we have like a quarter of the inventory that we normally do, but we still have a comparable number of condos actually selling, again, is kind of indicative of the amount of demand we have in relation to the inventory that's actually available. I am now accepting bets on what you think is happening with the average sold price for condos. If you think that the average sold price for condos went from about $279,000 to about $289,000, rounding us out to about a 4% increase year over year, you would be correct, and you get the grand prize, which in this case is going to be a nice crisp attaboy, and we'll hand that to you sometime. Now, what we're seeing here, yes, we're seeing a bit of an increase, about 4%, which that is appreciating at a faster rate than what you're seeing in the single-family market, which is actually pretty predictable. You know, once you get into a market where people are very cost-conscious and interest rates are going to be higher, there's more demand for the more inexpensive places for people to go and live. So they might be looking at a condo because obviously average sold price is only $289,000 as opposed to about $520,000. So it's going to be a little bit more affordable to live in a condo as opposed to a single family home. And so you see these average sold prices going up. Now, 4% is more than 2% than what we saw in the single family. But looking back historically, the average sold price for these condos did go increased by about 3% last year. A year before that was about 11%, and about 5.6%, and then 6.3% in 2021. So you're seeing about that 4% is kind of mellowing out a little bit from what we've seen before. So that's good. I'm not really seeing us go backwards anytime soon where they're going to suddenly lose their value, but that is promising if you're wanting to jump into these and you're afraid of the value shooting up too quick. We're going to talk all about the multifamily market in just a second, but before we do though, I did just want to take a bit of a break. If you are currently living in Alaska, it is certainly not lost on you that that summer is upon us, which means that we have rolled out the summer activities that we're going to be doing with the Meetup group. For those of you not aware of what the Meetup is just, well, it is exactly what it sounds like. I host a group once a month of people usually who have been living here for a couple of years, and they're just wanting to kind of meet people, get out and enjoy the state. And we go hiking, berry picking, water day at lakes and stuff like that. So it's really just kind of a low-key opportunity to get out and kind of meet people and experience the state. And if you'd like to get in on that, if you happen to be in the state or you're going to be here soon, do feel free to go follow the link to the Facebook group. That's going to be in the description section down below. That's where we post information about that. So make sure you take advantage of that. And also, I'm kind of sorry I have to do this PSA, but I am in fact a real estate broker, and most of my money, most of my actual income actually does come from helping people to buy and sell real estate. I know the studio and all that looks great here, and believe me, I enjoy putting all this together. YouTube is not paying the bills for me though, so if you need help, reach out to me, and that's how best you can support this channel. Okay, that's out of the way. Let's go and talk about the multifamily market. Now, looking at the multifamily market, we see that it's kind of the same trend as what we saw with the the single family and the condo market. There was a low water mark of inventory in 2023, and it's just steadily been going up a little bit at a time incrementally, because we were sitting at about 44 multifamily properties that were available on the market in 2023. Then it went up to, I think it was 54 if I recall correctly, and this year it's 74. So that's a nice little increase there proportionally, but also keep in mind, prior to COVID, we'd expect to see anywhere from, I think it was about 150 to about 190 properties available on the market. So sitting at about mid-70s is still a long ways off, but let's not be overly critical. Let's just be happy with what we got. All right, next, we are seeing that the number of multifamily properties actually selling in Anchorage went from 33 this time last year to 23 this year. Now, you might see that and say, well, that's clearly a sign that the demand for these multifamily properties is dipping. And I'd say yes, but that doesn't really tell the whole story, because 33 for the month of May is actually a lot of demand. Actually, looking prior to COVID, that's actually above what we would normally expect to see even prior to COVID, because normally we'd see anywhere from about 22 to maybe 29, somewhere in there. So 33 is definitely on the high end. So kind of have a high water mark in that instance, and being back at 23 kind of brings us back in line with what's normal prior to COVID. Next thing we see is average sold price for multifamily properties went from about $587,000 this time last year to $578,000 this year, which means we're actually seeing a decrease of approximately 1.5%. Now, before we get too excited and start beating the drums and getting out there and ready to take advantage of this falling market, let's kind of calm down a little bit and just keep in mind this is the multifamily market that we're looking at for the average sold price, and it includes everything from the little duplex all the way up to the commercial property that has like 100 units in it. So there's a lot of volatility in here. The one thing I do really want to look at, though, is yes, we did see a bit of a drop from about the 587 the year before, but prior to that, the average sold price was about 501,000. So in 1 year, it's increased nearly 90,000. And yes, it did come back a little bit, but not by much. Okay, so really I'm still seeing a jump from 2023 from about 5,000 to about 578,000. So there's a lot of volatility there, but across the board, I'd say the trend is definitely going up for rental properties in Anchorage. The big thing there is just to make sure you choose wisely. Just because it's the cheapest option, it doesn't mean it's the best option, okay? I'm going to leave it at that. Do keep in mind insurance is starting to become a little bit more challenging to find for some of these properties that are in some high-risk areas, and you want to be able to make sure that you can get good insurance that is going to cover you and that's not going to be a high risk, and, well, that's going to be a high risk to not get renewed for the next year, because that's what some people are looking at now that went and found some of these cheaper multifamily properties, and they were so excited, and now they're having a hard time finding insurance for it. Sure, I can make an entire video just talking about the woes of the insurance industry and how that impacts real estate investors and homeowners, but that's going to have to wait for another time. Okay, so what does all this mean for you? Well, if you are a buyer, it means that there's demand out there for just about all these asset classes, especially for condos. If you are over in Anchorage. So, that means that if you're looking for condos specifically, then we're definitely going to have some Rocky Balboa montages here to kind of get you into shape, to ready to get in there and, I don't know, fight and win the condo. You get the metaphor. Okay, connect the dots. So that's what I'd say there. It's going to be kind of competitive, and you just kind of have to be ready to compete and be mentally prepared. If you're a seller, main thing to remember is this is not the market that we had in 2021. Okay, this is still more of a seller's market, but it's not such a seller's market to where reality doesn't start pulling you back if you're asking something completely off the wall. Okay, if the price is not working, then tough beans, you're going to have to come down on your price. And the market, luckily, is still strong enough to where you're going to get that feedback pretty quickly. So if it's been a couple weeks and you got nothing, there you go. That's your answer. If you're an investor, like I said, big thing is just making sure that you find something in a good area that's you're not going to have problems getting insurance on, and also just make sure you're socking enough money away to make sure that if and when things break down, you can take care of it in a quick way, because your tenants do rely on you to make sure that that they are well taken care of inside of your building. But anyway, this has been my real estate market update. If you have any other questions, do feel free to reach out to me on my website down below. And thanks for watching. See you next time.